Okay, welcome to the afternoon session of the CSUN ATC TV broadcast studio. We've got a phenomenal organization here represented, and they're also exhibiting at the show, and we'll give you more information on that later. I'd like to welcome Mark Robbins, the Executive Director of the Quality of Life Plus program, and Scott Huyvaert, who's the Program Manager for the Rocky Mountain region. Gentlemen, thank you for coming.
Thanks for having us.
So this is a great story about what these gentlemen do and their organization. Give us an overview of the organization and a little bit of the history, if you would.
Started in 2009, and it grew after a few years of working from colleges and a lot of different veterans and first responders. And the real nutshell casing of what we do is work with disabled veterans and first responders to provide them with assistive technology. But we do it through a program with college engineering students. So we have 21 universities across the country that participate with us, and they get projects that we'll explain later and how that process works. But they get projects to work on. It's part of their senior capstone project. So for the students, they're graded. It's part of their final project they need to graduate as an engineer. And at the end, they work with the what we call our challengers, the veterans and first responders, and work with them and get through the whole process. It's a year-long program for the students and for the challengers from fall through spring semester.
And how did the organization get started?
It started with a gentleman who served in a lot of different capacities. I don't know if he was military, but also CIA.
United States Air Force.
And Air Force. He has worked, he just saw a need for this, and he started kind of reaching out to different schools to try to get started, and it just kind of became its own little program after a while.
So how are the challengers selected for this innovation?
So I can speak on that. A lot of our challengers find us through either word of mouth or we seek them out. I personally work with military organizations tied to veteran resources and organizations. So I have a lot of face time in front of the military community. Being a veteran myself, I'm involved in a lot of veteran organizations in the Colorado area, throughout the Midwest, and here West Coast. A lot of it does come from face-to-face. It could be as simple as somebody hears about us and finds us on our website and clicks a button and says, I have an idea for this. I can do this. They bring us the concept sometimes. A lot of our concepts come out of necessity. So they have something that they're unable to do. Whether there's no one disability that we work with. It's whatever the individual's living with. And the other way that we kind of find projects is out of fun, hobbies. A lot of them are sports-centric. So a lot of people are trying to play a sport or learn a new sport and have some kind of limiting disability that doesn't allow that. So we try to find a way to make it happen.
So how do the schools become involved with their engineering students? It's
a combination. Sometimes they seek us out. Sometimes we seek them out. I can talk about a couple colleges that joined us this past year. One is Virginia Military Institute joined us. That interest came because we had a professor at Norwich University in Vermont, got a new job at VMI, and he wanted to bring the program with him, so we were able to pull that together and got that started for him. Another new school is Grace College in Indiana, and the professor there actually heard of us through just some professional journals where they saw some projects being talked about at some other schools, and he reached out to us and said, how can we get involved? And they actually have a new engineering program there, so for them, we kind of got in on the ground floor with them.
So tell us how the process works, and maybe use an example anecdotally, but just one typical project, how it would function, how it would take place.
So once we've established recruiting efforts and found somebody that has a concept, they've either come to us or we found them. They say, I would like to achieve X. And we say, okay, so what we try to do is find what are they trying to do, what school, university, engineering style is going to fit that project the best, where would it make the most sense to build it. I have a project now, it originated in Colorado, but it's doing much better in Florida just because of the nature of the project. So we pair the individual up with the university that makes the most sense and with the teams that make most sense. If I have a team that's heavy mechanical centric, we can find schools that are very good at mechanical. If they need some other disciplines of engineering, we pair them up with the university that makes the most sense.
But it's predominantly mechanical engineering students?
I would say the majority of them are. We have had some partnerships in the past with biomedical companies that specialize in a little bit of everything. We actually have an opportunity this summer that we're trying to create a very interesting project with a private biomedical company that has a very vertical structure for manufacturing. So they come out with a device that's something you would buy off the shelf or see at Sharper Image or something like that. So we have different avenues of executing our projects.
Now, we were talking earlier about some of the projects that you have. Can you go into a little bit of detail of a few of them that stick out in your mind that were really successful innovations? I mean, you've got quite a few on your website.
I'd love to brag on my own projects, so that's what I'll do. I've got a couple personal connections to a couple of my projects because some of those challengers were my own soldiers, and that we've deployed with and gone through different things. One of my favorites, just because of my own personal hobbies, is we took adaptive sled hockey and took one of the sleds themselves and created a year-round training device that could operate on any hard surface, not just the ice. So if you were an adaptive sled hockey player, you wouldn't have to wait on ice time and practice hours to be on the ice, which would be maybe 3 a week. Now you could practice on a driveway, a parking lot, a hockey rink that's made for outdoors. You could practice as much as you could. So that was my personal favorite because it was fun and it was a sport that I like. We've had really all kinds of different disciplines. We've had, I could give you an example of a project out in Necessity that was probably one of the most simplest projects in concept, but it had a huge impact. One of my soldiers was shot in Iraq and lost a lot of dexterity in his primary arm. He was right-handed. He couldn't really do much with his right hand. And he just said, I'd like to use my right hand. And I'm like, okay, it's simple in nature, but it's actually a very tall order. And he's like, I just want to be able to do little things. He goes, I go out to dinner with my wife, and she has to cut my food. And his dignity was hurt and stuff like that, and he had problems mentally coping with being in public and seeing, having his wife have to help him in front of people. And so we created a device that was able to be controlled by a small switch that as you tighten the switch physically, it created grip. And it created enough grip strength for multiple items. He could cut his own food, drive a stick shift car, pick up objects. So it was such a simple project that had a huge impact on his life. But again, a lot of them are fun too. Just the sports side of it is pretty heavy. We've done bobsledding, fencing, fishing, hunting. I mean, it's really limitless, and it's kind of designed that way. You bring us what you can't do, what concept you have, what limit you're facing, we'll find a way to do it.
And then you shop it among the schools and see which engineering students are interested in it? I mean, how's the process actually work?
It's more of, does the school have the capabilities and the experience within that particular program? So engineering programs can differ what they specialize in. So we'll send out the project ideas to the different schools, and at times they'll kind of select and say, that's a good one for our students. We'll have everything you need there. One of the things as Scott was telling about some of the different projects, it's all about quality of life. How can you improve your quality of life in whatever you want to do? And one of my favorite projects that we'd worked on in the past was for a veteran who had lost his right arm and most of his left hand. We liked to ride his bicycle, but he could grip the handlebars with prosthetics, but it made it hard for him to shift gears. Students made a voice-activated gear shifter. So now he just yells the command, shift to 9th gear, shift to 10th gear, and the bike shifts. So that's a very cool thing. He gets to go out and do his biking and go with that. And then we have the other side of it, which I think is more kind of back to the simple things that we have. One veteran, she had lost her one leg and used a wheelchair a lot, but she didn't always want to, and she wanted the wheelchair converted to a walker. The design was so simple, but when the students finished it, I said, how hard was that? Because it looked so easy. He said, oh, you have no idea, because it was really a big challenge. And basically, they just took the handle, the grips of the wheelchair, and basically lifted them up, spun them around, flipped the seat over, and it became a spot for her to rest her leg, but then also left a spot for either putting her, she had a small daughter at the time, she could ride in the chair side, or they could put a basket there for shopping. So it just improved her quality of life. It made things easier for when she's facing a lot of challenges. And so we do a lot of stuff like that that's just good everyday stuff.
And the faculty for the engineering students, they get involved with the project too?
Yeah, they're very involved. Faculty are right there. They have regular meetings. And that's one of the things that Scott's in on with their weekly meetings with the student teams, the faculty, the challenger. And then sometimes we have mentors as well. We have people, volunteers from industry who are engineers, and they help out and give some practical experience.
Are they getting graded for this?
They're getting graded.
Oh,
yeah.
excellent.
Yeah, they need it for their graduation, so.
So I've actually had 2 of my veteran friends become engineering students after going through our process, because they were so impressed with what the teams had accomplished that they went, and one enrolled in New York and one enrolled in Colorado, actually. He's since moved to a different engineering school, but we've produced new engineers out of it. And it's kind of twofold. We're helping a veteran, we're helping a first responder, but that's one project is going to have a team of anywhere from 4 to 10 students that are going to graduate. So we really help the next generation of STEM students going into their field and helping a whole, whatever our impact is on one person, you can multiply that in graduating students.
Now, do any of the projects ever have commercial applications? Like, we know that a lot of the disability and speech recognition came out of the disability industry that we use in Alexa and things like that now. How about you guys? Do you see commercial applications for any of these projects, especially coming out of universities that actually deploy those in incubators?
I think there's some. They haven't, we haven't pursued that yet, but we do have agreements with the schools, between the schools, the students, and ourselves for intellectual property rights, just in case there's something out there.
It's patentable?
Yeah, and so I've talked to a patent attorney to learn a little bit more about the process. It's very involved, but I think there may be things that we have there in the hopper that we've done in the past and things we're currently working on. One thing I learned is that you have to protect the knowledge of it to a certain point so that you don't give away the idea. Once it's in the public domain, anybody can kind of take the idea. So we're a little careful on how we able to talk about some projects, but we do want to protect everybody's interest on that just in case there's a possibility.
We always keep that as a venue into the future of working with somebody, partnering with maybe somebody who's more capable of mass production of something, because we are not manufacturers,
right?
But if there is that capacity, we're willing to pursue it, I believe, if we do it in the right way.
Now, as a nonprofit, what are some of the challenges you face? And are you trying to grow the organization and just keep it going?
Yeah, from a management standpoint, it's always fundraising. Any nonprofit is always focused on that. And so we get grants from corporations, foundations, we get individual donations. It's just, that's always that ongoing process and always important. And we come to events like this to try to get more exposure and learn who else is out there within the space that we're working in and see if there's potential partnerships. The other challenge is finding the challengers. We're always looking for veterans and first responders who have limitations and would like to work with us and participate in a project with us. There's so many great things. I know another one of the projects I like was we're working on is we have a blind swimmer, veteran, and they swim in their lanes, but they'll go off track, lacking vision. So the students are building a swim cap, and at either end of the swim lane has a laser, so that if they get off center, the swim cap will buzz and get them centered again. So it just, again, makes their life easier, allows them to do the things they want to do, and gives them the outlet they want for their own activity.
Now, this is your first or second year at CSUN, correct? Yeah. What kind of a feedback did you get last year, and how about so far this year about what people are saying about this?
Everywhere I go, this is the most unique program out there. I don't think any other organization really works on the projects that we work on. We have 50 projects this year that we're working on with our 21 universities. The thing that I like about it is we're helping disabled veterans, very close to something I've always enjoyed working with, and the first responders as well. But the one thing I liked about the students is they're getting graded for this, so they're motivated to do it, but they're getting a better project than their peers are even at their same school, because they're probably working on something more boring. Here they're working on something to help an individual, knowing that there's something good at the end of it all. I was with one group of students, there must have been about 40 or 50 that were in the classroom, and I asked them, how many of you have had any exposure to the military or veterans prior to working on this project? And only about a third of the hands went up. I was surprised, but I was very happy because I thought, okay, now I've got the other 2/3 have had exposure. And I think they gained a greater appreciation for those who served in the military, those who have sacrificed a great deal, and what it meant for them to be able to just go right off to college without serving. And I just felt as though it brought two different groups together, a little more than I had anticipated. And I think that's a great byproduct of what we do.
What are some of the future challenges you face as an organization?
It'll always be the fundraising. I think, unfortunately, we'll always have a group of people that will need our help. We're people who put themselves in harm's way. They volunteer to do it. They choose this life, and they know that things will happen. But there's organizations like QL Plus that will be out there to help them. And I think, it's finding some neat projects, finding some people who really want to participate with us. And I think that's one of the challenges for our challengers is we ask them to commit to the whole academic year to get a project done, to work with the students, to be part of it, to visit campus and share the ideas and get the final product that they want. But for the most part, it's like I said, it's very unique and gives a lot of hope out there. It's fun.
Any of the QL Plus projects into artificial intelligence yet? Robotics?
I would say more along the line of like app development.
Mm-hmm.
We did, it wasn't robotics, but we had previously worked with a private company that had built devices that assisted artificial knees that had microprocessors in them. So we haven't ourselves worked on anything specific, but we're trying to expand. As that arena expands itself, we're able to get more projects of that type. I can't think of anything specific that we've done like that. We've built off of smart prosthetics, but we haven't created anything like that. I mean, those are so specialized.
Right. Especially for college students
Especially for college students. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, great. Well, we appreciate the time you've taken. Now, you guys have a booth here?
We do.
Correct.
And what's the booth number?
You had to ask.
I had to ask that one. It's in the conference guide.
You'll see it's in the back, and it's got a nice Quality of Life Plus banner. And come by and visit us. We have a lot of materials and the kinds of programs we've worked on, a lot of projects that we've worked on, and it really is a unique environment. And
Quality of Life business in your website is where?
It's qlplus.org.
qlplus.org. We've been talking to both Mark Robbins, who's the executive director, and Scott Huyvaert, who is the program manager for the Rocky Mountain region. Gentlemen, it's a great thing what you're doing, and I really appreciate you coming by today to talk to us.